You're right, it's all on Stephanie, that's right, that's it, she's in charge here. Make no mistake. I gotta have my eyes checked up right on the wall right here. Oh, wait, now, the driver's license today, you know,
Actually, it's actually 6.
it's 6.
I forgot that was always a little behind.
You have the list, Stephanie?
No, because we decided to do this. Pretty much.
Where's the over at the donut shop, see if there's any more. Having a false street out here. Stephanie, do you have your list?
Do you want it?
Okay, are we ready?
Yep.
Yes, you all please stand for the pledge of allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. This evening's meeting to order. We have an introduction, 2 of them. So I won't ask any questions.
We prepared them for that.
You prepared them for that, huh? Okay, I promise you I won't.
Yeah. I don't want to.
Quick and I'll tell a little bit about himself. This is Keith.
I was formerly employed here with the city of Paola. I was a police officer here for just under 2 years. I left and went to the city of Oswego, but I'm glad to be back here at the city of Paola.
I'll
So.
forgive you.
Perfect. Great job.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you, and we're glad to have you back.
Everybody, if you have not met her yet, this is Audra Harper.
You guys might recognize me. I've been with the city since 2001, and for the last 17 years, I was the court clerk, and just recently moved over to community development to be their administrative assistant. I'm very excited to be here. Thank you.
Thank you, Audra. Hope you don't get mixed up on which building you're going to.
Oh, I
Okay, we'll move on to the consent agenda, which is items 1A through E. Does any council member have any questions in regard to any of these items? If not, do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented and authorize the mayor to sign.
I'll second.
Smale,
Aye.
Upshaw.
Aye.
House. Aye. Shield.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Move on to comments from the public, and it looks like we do have a few here this evening that wants to speak. I will remind you, we do have a time limit on this, 3 to 5. We found that worked well when we was working on the TIF district and the mask ordinance. So thank you for please adhering to that. And, you know, you can discuss whatever your concerns are, but we do not take questions. We don't answer them. And the council will take notes and they will discuss them, but we do not do that this evening. That's not something we've ever done. And I do think that Sid, I asked him, he had some questions from you, Justin. I asked him to please print copies of these for all the council members, so they will have them to review, and we'll get input back from them on that.
So respectfully, if we can ask the questions and you guys answer here, what's the format in which we'll receive responses to those questions to relate to our people?
We just usually discuss it at a work study, or, you know, we are still working on this particular item that you all are here this evening. We have not received back any feedback yet because the surveys are not completed. We have till May the 17th. And the ones from Confluence will be here, I think, at our work study to present that information to us. And then we will move on from there, but we have to have the information. That's kind of the way it is. That's what we've asked for from the citizens and asking them to please fill out the surveys. And we have tried to make them available as many places as we can. And we are expecting to get feedback from everyone. So that's how we do that. But we will hopefully at our June work study have some information back in regard to that survey so we can move forward on not just our ball fields, but on all of our other projects that we do have some other questions for them and some other things. So we will hopefully be able to address them at that time. Okay, the first one, and I'm sorry if I'm going to pronounce your last name wrong, so I'm not going to say it. It's Chris. Partisan, thank you.
Chris Partisana, 23430 West 289th Street, Paola, Kansas. The house is actually, used to be in the expansion zone, now that that's expired.
Our growth area?
In the growth area, so I'm just about a mile north.
Good. Thank you for coming this evening.
I'm sorry?
Thank you for coming this evening.
Mayor, city manager, members of the council, staff, guests, thank you for taking the time. I'm here to talk about the Bailey Sports in Wallace Park. I've been with the organization about 23 years. I've been the secretary for about 18 years. So I've seen it from all of its different, incantations back and forth. My wife and I don't have any children, so this is how I get my kid fix. So when one of these little tykes decides to be a real pain in the butt, they get to go home with somebody else. I want to thank Sid and Randy for coming to our meeting Thursday, April 29th. It was a lot of help. I want to talk about turf. Teams come to the KC, all over the KC area to the USD fields, specifically because there's turf there. Okay, so that is a draw. Those fields run for about $8 grand a weekend. So there is an economic benefit to that. The person that is currently renting those fields saying they would rent any additional fields if they have turf on them. This past Sunday morning, we had about an inch of rain. So up at my house, which is not too far from the fields. So by noon, the turf fields were playable. None of the Wallace Park fields were playable at that point. They could practice on them, but they were not in a playable condition. So, turf will help significantly reduce the amount of, rainouts and those kind of things. We've heard a lot about the out-of-town tournaments. We also have the ability within Cal Ripken or Babe Ruth to be able to host tournaments. Right now, softball wise, there's absolutely no schedule for any of the Kansas tournaments because they don't have any place to put them. Okay. If we had a place that was good enough, we could host them. And we could host several. We have done a number in the past. I've run them, I've co-run them. Again, bringing people in from out of town, it's one thing, if your kids are here, you're probably going to take them home to go eat. If they're coming in from the Kansas City area, they may eat here, and that's about it. If we bring people in from Hayes and Salina and Wichita for like I said, the Cal Ripken or Babe Ruth, they're going to be using gas. They're going to be staying at the hotel. There's a lot more things besides food that they would be doing here in town. So again, having a ball field with surfaces, you know, would be an economic driver that way. Maintenance, you know, we had one of the coaches who's actually on our board lose a softball in the outfield. Okay, softball, 11-inch softball in the outfield because the grass is so long. Okay. In a ball field, a working ball field, you have to mow it 3 to 5 times, or every 3 to 5 days. You know, obviously, if the grass is high enough to use a softball, it's been quite long since it was mowed. One of the questions was how to bring in some people, you know, the remote worker type things. To be able to get a remote worker, I mean, I work at the Sprint, well, what was the Sprint campus? To be able to get people to actually relocate here, you've got to have high-speed, reliable internet, and suddenly ain't cutting it by any stretch of the imagination. So if that's really your goal, you're going to need to have some type of competitor, you know, and put it in. Now, along Hedge Lane, of course, where I live, there's already an AT&T fiber line. They're currently trenching 2 more, but they're not, you know, as far as I know, they're not going to offer it to me. But it's one of those things you guys really need to think about. How can we get high-speed internet here, reliable high-speed internet, to be able to attract those type of workers. I want to make sure to invite you all to the opening ceremonies or Sunday, 4:30, Wallace Park. That'll give you a chance to walk around, actually look at the fields, and see what kind of condition they're in. That was all I had. Thank you.
And thank you. Thank you for all the years you have participated and been a part of the program. I know how much that is, having children that participated in the sports coming up. Even I played slow pitch. So I'm familiar with the softballs.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Thank
Thank you
you.
for that. And thank you for coming this evening. Okay, is Mr. Galupski?
Scott, you're up.
Put you a second.
I'll second. How did I get in front of you?
And Scott, be impressed, I called you Mr. Galupski instead of just Galupski.
You're the only one. Thank you. So my name's Scott Lewski, 33105 Harmony Road, Paola, Kansas. So I'm outside the city limits, but I'm here representing as the president of Paola Youth Sports. And I think we all know what we're all here to talk about is the ball fields and the turf and why we need that. I think we're all aware that something definitely needs to be done to improve what we have. It's been that way since 1964, when they put the little Russell Field in, or, you know, close to that. The kids needed improvement. You know, it's been done forever by volunteers, but the volunteer pool is getting smaller and smaller. So that's why it'd be nice to have something that's a lot less maintenance, easier to take care of, and a lot better playability. Rain outs, things like that would be eliminated. The turf is safer as far as kids go. You know, the less dirt, grass infield is maintained, the more bad hops you get, things like that. Turf becomes a truer playing surface, especially when you get into a rec situation where the level of play between the lower level of kid that's playing just as rec, or there's some kids that are tournament players that are still playing down here, you can really get very different level of play. So the turf will help make that safer. Rain outs, I heard Chris talk about the rain outs. Definitely it pretty much is eliminated if they're all turf. Just turf on the infield, or, you know, it'll help at least 70%. You bring people out of town to tournaments down here, if you have dirt infields and you have an inch of rain in the morning, they're gonna probably blow the whole thing out. Everybody goes home, half the people don't come. If it's turf, everybody's here. Hey, wait an hour, wait 2 hours until the rain's out. So they're here going to Walmart, getting food, gas, whatever. So they stay here. it's just such a, if you can bring the tournaments from out of town, it's such a revenue generator for the city. Gate, probably you can make about $250 per team per day just on gate. You know, if the city chose to run the tournaments or keep the rent of the tournament, you know, right now I think at the high school there is $50 an hour per field. So that's a 2-hour game on an average. You're looking at $100, you know, and then your entry fees. Teams are paying about $300 to $400 right now to play. Well, if you have with the high school 4 fields and you had 4 fields down here at turf, that would give you 8 turf fields. I don't know there's anywhere that I know of other than maybe Bettis and the new complex up by the airport that has 8 turf fields. The one up by the airport is mainly for high school size kids. So something like that, you know, 8 fields, you could generate easily, I would think, a 30-team tournament, easy. You know, the high school once in a while would have that national softball tournament. And that was just using 4 fields, and they made just a killing, you know. So something like this could really open up people coming to the community. It would be a draw for the kids and families maybe to move here. You know, the school enrollment is going down. As the school enrollment goes down, you know, that's kind of hurts everything. So this would definitely, I think, would be one attraction to get the kids in the community, you know, get people to move here. You know, it would definitely be an attraction. So last thing, I want to thank everybody for letting us speak. I know we're all on the same page, or we want the best for the kids. That's what everybody's here for. Your way of doing it, our way of doing it might not all be the same, but I think at the end of the day, we all want the same thing. What's best for the kids and what's best for the community. How we go about it might be different. And how fast everybody wants it done might be different. I'm not very patient, but I've been waiting for a long time. So, you know, that's why I might be a little bit more, let's get it done now. But definitely, what's best for the kids in the community. So, any questions? All right, thanks, everybody.
Thank you for coming this evening, and again, thank you for all your time and dedication to our young.
You bet. Thank you. Appreciate you letting me speak.
You're welcome. Thank you. Justin? I'm not gonna call you Mr. Smith.
That's
I'm
right.
sitting
You
by
told
Mr.
people you're
Smith.
gonna fire me as the doorman. That was
Yeah.
probably stung a little more than that. Okay, so I'm Justin Smale. Right now, we're in the process of getting our house built. We don't have an official address, so I'll give you my business address, which is 16 East Wheel. But we are in the county. We are just renting an RV spot, so there's not an address. So with that said, my hope was we get a lot of questions regarding what the progress of this is, why it's taking so long, what the holdups are, what the questions are. And so that was my hope, presenting the questions to you guys, was that we would get those questions answered, because to this point, we've tried to come to a lot of meetings and we've been accepted to now 2, one work study and this one. We had the opportunity to come to work studies after that one on the understanding that there would be no participation, that it would just be to watch. With that
We
said,
had COVID we've had to deal with, which is limited.
I can respect that, but there's microphones on the computers as well. So that's where I struggle. But with that said, what I want to show, because we have most of our participants that were willing to be here are at practices. So next Wednesday, I will deliver the full list of everybody that wanted to be on the petition to let you guys know that they're ready for this to happen. Because our concern is, when we met last year, way back when, I'm putting this on because we're going to use this video. We're going to link to the video so people can see it. When we met last year, we discussed the timeline that was going forward. When I say last year, I guess it's been a year and a half. It was when we were getting us through to the vote. So this started with Jay coming to us saying he didn't think the pool was gonna pass, us proposing that we could get it passed because there's so much needed at the ball fields that we would get our people to go out and vote. With that said, I know how many votes we could account for, and it was well more than half of what voted on that issue. So we then went forward with our understanding at that point that it was basically materially going to be 50% for the pool, 25% for park improvements, and 25% for streets. In that time, Jay retired, and we were supposed to meet the following May to get all that hashed out and completed. At that point, we were in the middle of COVID, so it put our schedule back a little bit. Still tried to get on later in the year, and as a result, had a little bit of miscommunication when we left our meeting in October as to what the timeline looked like in the sense of urgency from the city side. So we continued after year one when we told our people it wasn't going to get done before that season because we couldn't access the funds. Year two, we could, it would just be taking a bond out before the actual revenue stream started. So we started telling our people based off of the input that we had at that point from your side, hey, this is what it looks like. Then we came to December, it came to a head, we realized there was absolutely no way. That was the exact words were, no, I see no way that this happens this year before the ball seasons in April and May. That was at the beginning of 2020. So at that point, we got a sense of urgency and started showing up because we went out as a volunteer organization, did the research necessary, got the information necessary, asked our people what they wanted, got bids, and brought it all to you guys. And what we brought to you was very clean, and it was ready to be looked at under a microscope. Still is, still holds. With that said, when that got shut down at the January work study, we asked to come back February because we felt like we had covered a lot of ground with everybody in the same room. That was when we were denied. With that said, to participate, we were denied to participate. We were told we'd come back, but we couldn't participate. So February 10th, we met with Sid. It was a great meeting. We went through with Sid a timeline. Sid gave us a timeline that went through and started with geotechnical survey, then went to questions from Confluence to hit the community, onto there would be a spending measure voted on sometime between June and August. And then September, October, we would have bids back and be voting for a bid proposal that would start construction that fall. And I think at my request, because we were at the point where we were ready to walk, we had an agreement worked out with both Osawatomie and Gardner to where we would ship our kids somewhere else because we were done fighting this fight here. We were going to sign them up and send them somewhere where they take care of their fields, because it was getting to be the field maintenance is more work than it's worth. I got 7 people who have full-time jobs who go down there and work their tails off just to make it to where it's not dangerous. So that's where we were at, and that was the compromise that was agreed to at that point, but nobody else got to hear it outside of our meeting. So when we tell people that, it's not on record. So that's what this is for, is first off, to get that on record. Because you guys all got an email, because I actually asked him to email it, and he was totally on board. And I feel like that we're still in a good faith that the hope is to have those things done on that schedule. But the part that really I'm struggling with, and it's where these questions come from, and I as a business owner, I set a budget, I set a goal, and I work the steps to get to that goal. Here I feel like any one of you, if you go and talk to your community members or you look at the feedback that's been received, I'll bet none of you have gotten a kickback about what we're spending on it. I'll bet none of you have gotten a kickback regarding what surface we use without the caveat that they're worried about the flood issue. The flood issue is the one issue that people are worried about down there. And I know because I went out and I beat the streets. I've done my research. With that said, the geotechnical determines that that is or isn't what we can use or where we can put it down there and what we're able to do or what additional costs need to be incurred to make that work. While I'm talking about cost, that geotechnical that we don't have done yet, what got my board excited and my public excited is that we saw a listing requesting geotechnical for the lake. When we left the February 10th meeting, we were on the understanding that we had somebody that was going to get that lined out very soon. So when we see a month and a half later that we're looking for somebody to do it for the lake, it was a clear light bulb moment that we hadn't done it for the ballpark, or we probably have somebody who could have done the lake as well. So at that point, we started checking in, and that's what brings us to here. But something I want to point out before I forget, to think about a little food for thought. In the last 5 months, building materials across the board have went up almost 60%. The ones that I could track down numbers for that specifically pertain to our ballpark have went up roughly between 30 and 40%. So that bid that we got, that we were worried if it was going to be too high or that we might want to spend more, now is going to cost us well more. There is no chance. So that 5 months of sitting on our hands has cost us dearly. And where I'm going with that is, on our survey, we were very disappointed in the survey from the standpoint of my understanding when we left that January meeting was the things that we wanted public feedback on were, would they support the cost if they felt like that was the location and the material that we used on the fields. In our survey, there's not a single question that asks what cost we would support. There's not one. So we have no idea from what we sent out if people would be okay with a $500,000 investment in the complex or a $10 million investment in the complex, because we didn't ask a single question that pertained to that. Number two, we went through as a board and tried to look at the questions to say, here's what we have as a proposal, and here's how we would answer the questions if this is what you want. And we have 7 very educated members on our board, and we couldn't come up with what answers we should give to get that end game. The only 2 that were clear were the 2 that had turf questions. Everything else, it asked if there was an economic, would you support it if it drove economic development? Well, what does that tell you guys? I mean, that's what I want to know, what we're looking to get from those questions, how we're going to take those and corral them into the answers that we need. Because you could say, well, if we want economic development, we should put it out there by the highway to get other stuff built around it. But at the same time, we could say, we put it over here at Walls Park because it pulls people through the community and they're going to hit everything and see our small town charm on the way through. And they'll still build out there the hotels and whatever. But it doesn't give us an answer. We ask questions like, do your kids travel for baseball? Again, we've got numbers of what enrollment is down here. You can see how many are affected, and you can go and pull actual information versus public perception. And then my biggest issue, without even touching the rest of the questions, this survey is the most unscientifically performed survey next to a Facebook survey that I think we come up with. I literally, and I didn't because I don't know how I'd answer to get what I want, but I could change internet browser, and there's like probably 10 of those. So I could go through and do 10 different internet browsers and answer that survey 10 times. I also am not required to put my name or address, so we have no idea who's answering it. So somebody from Kansas City could get on there and put that they're a 30-year-old with 3 kids and they live in Paola, and we have no idea. So how are we going to take that as a representation of Paola in our community or the Miami County area that participates in Paola when we didn't require a name on the survey? That's hard to swallow because I feel like when it comes time to make this decision, to a person in this room, and I say that, let me back up. And this isn't a slide on Sid, he's just 2 years into Paola. But to a person in this room that's been here, I can see several people who have either coached or had kids or both that participated in our league. And I guarantee you, you know what the vibe from the city is on this deal. And that's why I'm circling the drain on when we asked when the geotechnical looks like it could be done. The first was, what was it? Well, I can't ask questions. But I think if I remember correctly from re-listening to our meeting, that it was June, was the hope that we'd have the geotechnical information by June. We paid Confluence very good money to help us develop a plan for Wallace Park. And we didn't even give them the information to know what parts of Wallace Park they can use. Because that geotechnical information that we needed to have 2 months ago, if we give it to them, number one, it answers the question of the Wallace Park fit or how it fits in Wallace Park. But number two, it tells them how much room they have. Because when we had our meeting with Confluence, the Paola Youth Sports with their 2 representatives, it went very well. And the one thing they mentioned at the end was, hey, it might actually look like, when we asked what their initial suggestion was, their feedback was that they actually thought that we should be looking more 3.2, 3.3, 3.3 million, and putting LED lights around all the soccer and flag football fields down by Rock Stadium where we were renovating, so that the whole thing was done for the next 20 years instead of just the upper portion. But that's what we've got to have, the data to where they can make that call, because if they come and they give us the best presentation ever, and then we could find out 3 weeks later that it doesn't work. And I don't know how they work, but I know when I get paid for a job, I deliver a report. Somebody come back and ask me for a change order, I don't do it for free. I do sometimes, but that's because I'm a sucker. But with that said, that's where we're struggling, because we don't see how our timeline holds. How can we vote somewhere between June and August if we're not even sure how this looks from a site standpoint? Like, how can we vote on spending? Don't get me wrong, I'm still absolutely going to show up every month and let everybody know who's for and who's against and who follows our timeline, because I'm being held up to the fire. And so is the rest of my board. But that's what I want to know. Like, when I ask those questions that I sent you guys, I absolutely would love to have answers from everybody in the room so that I can post so people can see where you stand on each one of those items. And then as we move forward, if you don't, it's fine. That's your prerogative. We'll just put this person refused to respond. But that's where we're at, is it seems like we all know what needs to happen. It seems like we have the information we need. The one piece that most of us were concerned with is the one thing that's not on the timeline. That's why my board is here. That's why we have our support here. And that's why we're dropping the petition next week with the rest of the people in our league who have signed up to say that they want to be there. They couldn't make it tonight. Because when we drop a petition that has the numbers that it's going to have on it, and I'm not going to pledge numbers because I don't know where they're at. I know I've got around 200 already. But if we can drop something with higher numbers, that to me, you have actual names of the people who live in the community. You can tangibly look and say, that person lives in Paola, that person lives in Paola, and they want this. So when it comes time to decide what we're doing, and you got 300 responses to a survey that can be taken by somebody in China, or we've got 400 list of people who live in Paola or the surrounding area, I hope that that's weighted and that it carries the, hey, we're ready to get this done. And then number two, I'm sitting in the house situation, waiting, hoping materials come down. So far, that's why I don't invest in the stock market, because I've been dead wrong to this point. I keep thinking, yeah, COVID's lightening up, this is happening, they'll drop. I wonder how long we're gonna hold on to commit to a bid and how much higher our cost is gonna be because of it. Because if we don't, at the rate that it's driven in the last 8 months, if we don't vote till October, we could be paying almost double for our complex. For the same thing we could have gotten in January. For 2.2 for the one iteration or 2.5 for the other. So that's what I had to say. I wanted to get it on record. I would love to hear any feedback at any point. I know it's not in your format right here, but anything that you guys give us, we're gonna post so that everybody can see that this person is for it. Here's what they're doing. Here's how they feel. But with that said, I don't do the open-ended, like, yeah, we're hoping to, when the organization comes down to do the lake, we'll ask them if they can check out the ball fields. That to me is ludicrous. When we said we're gonna do the ball fields and we need the information well before June, I wanna get a dang bid and get that done well before June. The fact that we're hoping when they come down, they might be able to do this, says to me, it's May 10th, May 11th, whatever it is. The odds of it getting done by June are looking pretty scarce.
I have one question. Do we have the possibility of getting it done by June, the survey?
This is the geotechnical survey, not the questions.
The geotechnical. No, the survey will be done May 7th.
No, I mean the geotech.
The land survey, I should have said land survey.
Is it
Well,
possible?
a land survey or a geotechnical study, because those are two different things.
We've got a land survey, so the geotechnical
We haven't
study,
seen that yet.
okay? The geotechnical study that you were gonna have.
I think if we wanted to move forward with that, we can. I'd have to visit with Brown Intertech. I'm not sure that after conversations with them and with Confluence, that we want to do that, because we basically have to do some grid sampling down there, because they usually operate off of a very specific site plan. That's what I thought. I've talked to Confluence, and what they've told me is like, they will, part of what I understand from their evaluation of everything, will tell us whether or not they think it can go there. Now, granted, they won't have geotechnical to back that up, but they're looking at floodplain information and elevation changes and doing kind of an evaluation as part of what they're going to propose to us.
So we can have all that by June?
That's what is on schedule for June 1. For work study. That'll all be, Confluence will provide us with that information.
So how far behind that will the geotechnical be?
I think that depends on what we decide out of June 1. I think we're so hung up that we don't have the geotechnical done. And honestly, I think we're starting to have a discussion now about something that we don't have on the agenda.
I understand that, but we've got a group here that is concerned.
I
All I'm
understand
asking
that.
is one question.
I understand
Can
that.
we have it sometime in June? It's
So-
either a yes or no answer.
No,
Okay.
So my last comment, and then I'll give the floor, because I have well exceeded my 5 minutes, and this is why we have no faith and why we are here being pains in the rear. I will give you, to anybody that wants to listen, our meeting the other night. And the other night, we left on the understanding that the geotechnical would be done in June. This is the same thing that happened in January. The story changes. And that's why there's no faith, because just right there, it was made very clear, there's no way this is happening in June. That it's actually, the plan had changed. If the plan had been presented to us, that, no, we've decided actually based on talking to them, because Mammoth actually gave us the same thing. They said, we don't want to incur those costs until the contract is done, because it'll be a sunk cost. We get the contract, we go down on the specific grid plan, and that's what he said. But the fact that we got different information, we go relay it, that's when you guys hold your meetings and it's discussed and it's something totally different, that we hit a partner. And that's why we have not enough faith to let this sit and go, that it will meet the timeline. because we're not getting the same thing repeatedly. And that's why I wanted it here. We'll put a link to this, and hopefully everybody will watch it and do their own research, because I feel like that I'm running out of good faith and that they're not gonna keep believing that, yeah, that everything's great, we're good, we're gonna do something within the next century, because my last thing is, besides the pool, which you know better than anybody, was not a council-driven deal, it was a grassroots deal. The only thing the Paola community has done for our children in the last 50 years is a skate park. The city of Paola has not invested in those ball fields one penny, invested in anything to do with youth recreation or activities in 50 years. And I want everybody to digest that and think about all the stuff that we talk about. I'd say there's some reparations due and that we need to make that right.
Thank
My
you,
opinion.
Justin.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for coming. Alan, I think you're next.
What'd you say the time limit was?
5 minutes. Did you take up Alan's time too?
If I may. Never been in this position before. Alan Heyer, 15895 Lakeshore Drive. I own several businesses that are housed in Paola. I live in the county. I want to apologize, and it's not my term to apologize, for Mr. Smale, because he does not understand the system of putting public works in place. I've been on the board of Rural Water District number 2. I understand how you put public works in place. You have a concept, you hire an engineer, you hire an architect, they bring you a document. It's not coming from the vendor. The vendor may have input, but it doesn't come from the vendor. You hire an engineer, they go down, they make some preliminary assumptions, you talk with them, you take those preliminary assumptions, the council or the board analyzes those, gives him some information, we move the process along. It is not a fast process, but that's how the process has to be done. And at the end of the day, the process is approved, the drawings are committed, the cost is made, proposal is signed to the engineer, you get the contract, you get the documents back, you review them again. At some point, the council says, okay, this is it, I like this concept, this is what we're gonna do. We're gonna have the engineer finish the project, finish the drawings. Then we're gonna review it one last time, put it out to bid. It's bid out to anybody that wants to bid on it with multiple material suppliers. And at that point, the bids come back and you know what the price of the work is. It's not done this way with a vendor bringing you a proposal. He may tell you that he's got the best turf in the world, but that's not how you do it. That is not the way it's done in the public sector. So enough for that soapbox. I'm concerned about putting $2.5 million in Wallace Park. I don't think that's a good idea. Those ball fields need to have some help. I take umbrage with his comment that the city's never done anything for those ball fields. I remember about, I don't want to show my age, but 35 years ago, myself and the men's softball teams came to the city and said, hey, if you guys will put up $20,000, we'll provide the labor to build those men's softball fields over there at the Rock Stadium. And the city did it. We had multiple people, Kenny Northern, myself, Les Smith, good old Earl Ventura, and a bunch of those kinds of guys. And between us and what we had purchased, which was the backstops, we put those fields together and they were paid for by the city with our labor. So there has been some work done down there. I don't believe it's sufficient. I think the city's lacked from the very beginning, but I'm not gonna go there. As far as the elevations down there, I don't know if you guys understand elevations, but the floodplain down there, per the federal government and the Miami County GIS maps, is 857.1. That's 857 feet above sea level. The street at the ball field between Little Russell and Big Russell is 856.5. So it's a foot below, the street is, below the floodplain. And then there's also in the flood plan, there's another elevation that is the height you're supposed to work from, and that's 859. So that's a foot higher than what we had before. And in the land development ordinance, it says that any structure must be finished floor 3 feet higher than the floodplain. So therefore, if you were to put a new concession stand between Little Russell and Big Russell, it would be 5 feet higher than the pavement. Now, I don't make these rules up. It's the federal government and FEMA that determines the floodplain. It's the city land development ordinance that determines the elevations you're supposed to put buildings at in those structure, in that zone. So, number one, until you get the field, until you get it surveyed, until you study the LDO, until you hire the engineer, these questions don't come up. But this question should come up first before anybody's talked about spending any money. Can you even put it down there without moving thousands of yards of dirt that has to be brought in order to elevate everything up where it's above the floodplain? Now you can say, Alan, we're the city. If we want to put the ball fields down there and we want to put them in a hole, that's our prerogative. Well, that's all well and good. Except that if I buy a piece of ground and it's in the floodplain, I can't do anything with it. I have to comply with the regulations that are in the land development ordinance. Don't make the rules, I just got to play by them. So I don't think you can put those ball fields down there, build the things you want to build without a ton of dirt being brought in. The other thing I'm having trouble struggling with is I don't know who or under what authority the organization that brought this program to you has that authority. They're not affiliated with any jurisdiction, the city, county, school district. So I don't know what authority they have. So I believe the authority lies with you guys. So does that mean that we need to have a rec commission? Does that mean we need to have a rec director? Does that mean the school district needs to have a rec commission and a rec director? I don't know. But you're letting a private entity drive this decision, and where's that private entity going to be 5 years, 10 years from now? Under what authority? And then it's all given back to the city to sort out. I think it would be best at this point to determine how we want to proceed. Is it a rec commission based on the city? Is it a rec commission based on school district? When I say school district, I mean a school district taxing base. Don't necessarily mean school district like USD 368 runs it, but it needs to be a taxing base for the school district taxing base. The other thing that's trying to get understood is I've been here forever, and I think we need a 30-year plan that tells us where we're going to put parks, how we're going to develop them, and what we're going to do. So the easiest thing to say was, where's the growth going to be? Well, it's probably going to be north. How far north it goes, I don't know. Is it going to go south? Maybe, probably not. Is it going to go east across 169? At some point it might, but it's got to get across Weoh Creek through the bottom, so that's kind of a question. And it's not going to go west because of the railroad tracks. Just that's never even been in a conversation without a bridge. So where are we going to put future parks? Well, somebody needs to figure out where those future parks need to be, and that ground needs to be acquired now. You say, well, Alan, you've been up to the Arboretum one too many times. Well, I have. But the Arboretum started 20 years ago as wooded timber. So it's turned into what it is today because It was started 20 years ago as wooded timber, and now it is what it is. We can't get there, don't expect to. But we need to determine where those future parks are gonna be. So where's it gonna be, and when are we gonna acquire that land? Are we gonna force the developers to give it to us? I don't know, but we need to have that thought process. And I hate to come to things like this without giving you my version of a couple of options. One option would be to go out to Lake Myola, and across from the swimming area, you cut that hill down and create ball fields there across from the swimming area where the people sit for the fireworks display. You just terrace that hill, take all the dirt out, and get rid of it. And turn that into ball fields. It's already city ground. Yeah, there's a lot of dirt to move, but it's outside the box, and I think we need to think outside the box. The other option would be to go north of the existing field at the high school and put in some more fields there, because right now, when you go up there for a evening in the summertime, there is not enough parking. There just isn't enough parking when those all 4 fields are in service. So you put in some fields north of those that belong to the city, you add another parking lot, and now you've helped alleviate parking. You've got more parking, you've got more fields up there, they're all in the same place. And that's how I would see one place to put those. That doesn't mean you abandon the ball fields down at Wallace Park. It just means that you go in, you regrade them, get them where they drain water, you build up what needs to build up, they drain water, they work better, and you can use them. They'll just be grass fields, but they're just secondary fields, practice fields, overflow fields. And the other thing that I don't get through any of this is maintenance. Okay, when you invest money in something, somebody's got to maintain it. So I've not seen any pro forma. I don't know if there is any pro forma on what the budget is 5 years from now to maintain this $2.5 million investment. Somebody's going to have to be kicking money into this thing, and you know that from the swimming pool. Somebody's got to kick money into it all the time. So I don't see the pro forma. I don't see a cost benefit analysis. They've talked about all the money they can bring in. It's not written down on paper. It's not in a pro forma. So I would assume that that would be a requirement that the council would need to have before they could move forward. When I built the hotel, I had to show up with the pro forma to get my industrial revenue bonds, and all the paperwork was put out in order, and everybody knew what was going to happen. Was that what was going to happen? Well, it was the best guess, but it was the pro forma that was put together to put the program in place. So, number one, I appreciate your time, and I think there's a lot of homework to do. I think we've got to look down the road 30 years, create the big box, figure out where we want to go, and that money will be just fine if it's not spent for 6 months or it's not spent for a year and a half. Because if we do the right program under the right procedures, it'll work out. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Alan. Thanks for coming. Luke?
My name is Luke DeGrand. I live at 103 Hillcrest Drive here in Paola. So I grew up playing on all the fields down there. I have the luxury of coaching my kids on all the fields down there. Hopefully someday I get to watch my grandkids, maybe great-grandkids do the same thing. So I do have a few questions, and I know they can't be answered, so they may come across as rhetorical, they may not. First off is, I totally agree with Justin as far as something is long overdue, which it's well beyond all of your tenures here, but our past city managers, our past councils have failed to invest any money in the parks, as far as the ball fields especially.
Lucas,
Yes.
how many years has the city had in the ball fields versus they were the Legion, when the Legion had them?
I don't know that answer.
Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry to interrupt.
Okay, well, I mean,
The city's only had them like 3 years.
Parts of it. there's four of them that are city ground.
Okay. So, I mean, I agree, I do agree with Justin. Something is long overdue. I mean, I went down there, I felt work fields, I felt as much as I can. But, and to touch on Alan's point, as far as, I know the debate, the discussion has went on and on for several years about a rec commission. I strongly feel that if we had something like that in place, a rec commissioner, whether the city just takes the bull by the horns and handles it. I understand in the past, the city feels the school should handle it, the schools feel the city should handle it. Somebody needs to step up to the plate and do the right thing. If we had a rec commissioner, we would have somebody to ask questions to answer questions. I mean, in every department in this city, you have Kirk Reese. If you have a public works question, you call the public works director. If you have a question regarding fire, you call Andy Martin, or you have Andy Martin here at the meeting to discuss these issues. You know, you got police administration, same as well. I'm not sure your exact title, but I believe it's interim chief. Okay, but you have somebody to answer questions. So if we had somebody to handle this, because it's not just about baseball, it's not just about softball, it's not just about football, it's not just about winning or losing. I remember every coach I had as a child. One, for instance, if anybody had the pleasure, I don't know if you want to call it the pleasure, but playing under Don Sullivan. Don was the hardest coach I ever had. A lot of days I went home, I didn't like Don Sullivan. But now looking back as an adult, I have more respect for him than ever. So as a coach, we're molding kids into adults to be citizens of this community. So when we don't give them adequate resources, we give them poor fields, you know, we need to step up the plate on all this. And not just as leaders, but as the whole community. So we're here tonight because of you guys, and you guys are here because of us. So I took a few notes. I'll try not to get on tangents. Another question is, because of this issue and why we're here, because of lack of planning in the past and everything else, is there a contingency plan if something like this doesn't happen? Has that been discussed? If we don't get all new fields, what happens? I mean, if that decision is made, what happens the next day? Is there going to be any plans in place for future maintenance, for future anything down there? Or has that even been discussed yet? Because right now, it feels like we're going from minimal to all out without any other choices being made or discussed as far as the what ifs. So, and to touch on Alan's point, because if we do try to choose other locations in the future, yes, studies have to be involved because who knows where the growth is going to go. I don't know if anybody's read the book Strong Towns by George Mayron Jr., but he focuses on, it's mainly based on infrastructure of small towns, how they started, how they developed, how they grew. So in his book, he thoroughly discusses how towns back in when they all started, it all had to provide somebody just jumping off a train track. They decided to start a little general store, post office, whatever, they start the town. A lot of towns across America didn't survive up to today's standards. We have a lot of them locally that are no longer there. So then when the government stepped in and started building highways, interstates, towns started gravitating towards the interstates. Our town is a prime example of that point. So who knows where anything will go, but whether it has to be handled that way or whether it has to be handled new fields where they're at, or at least some funding to fix the fields we have. But something has to be done because it's overdue. So, because, I mean, already, my mom played softball with you for years. And I remember going down there all the time. And that was Rock Stadium. And it's still being utilized, but it still needs work as well. All
Kids on the ball field, didn't it?
right. So that's all the points that I had. And that's all I have. So thank you for your time.
Thank you for coming, Luke. Okay, with that being said, I appreciate all of you coming this evening, and I do want you to stay positive because we are working towards getting this resolved, but we have to get information and we have to move forward smartly. Taxpayer dollars, it's your dollars. and we have to be sure that we use it the best way we can to the best purpose. But we are trying, we truly are. So thank you all for coming this evening to show your support for the community, for the ball fields and your children. Thank you.
Mayor, I did actually have two email responses, so we
Okay,
said we would go ahead
yes,
with them.
would you please, Stephanie? Thank you.
Absolutely. So this is from Sean Sutton, 601 South Agate. It says, good morning, my name is Sean Sutton, and I've been a Hill resident all my life, 32 years. Recently, I read in the paper about Wallace Park ball field and the estimated project cost. I am shocked how much money is being considered for baseball fields. The Paola pool, roads, and many other items should come before more new buildings. If Paola can't even keep up with Wallace Park playground, then how can we keep up a multi-million-dollar baseball complex? And there's also a comment from Andy Baus, I believe I say his name, I couldn't find his address. I wish I could attend the meeting tonight, but my softball team has 2 games tonight in Olathe. I think it would be great if Paola had better facilities. I'd much rather be playing in Paola rather than Olathe. I would like to see the field stay at Wallace Park. I also believe having a better facility, having a local team along with tournaments would increase revenue with more people come and staying in Paola. Thanks, Andy Bell.
Thank you, Stephanie.
Sure.
Okay. Okay, with that, we'll take everything you said this evening in consideration, and we're going to move forward with our meeting. And thank you for coming.
Thanks for that.
You can stay, you can stay if you'd like.
That's all right.
Okay. We'll move forward to new business, traffic control device schedule update.
Mr. Mayor, members of council,
Did I give you that, Stephanie, that list? I'll lose it if I
I
don't.
say I don't lose it.
They'll need it for the list. Thank you. Okay.
you ready?
I'm ready.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, city staff reviewed the traffic control device schedule, which is basically our stop signs, yield signs, no parking zones and all that, and surveyed the existing signage throughout the town. Modifications to that current schedule were noted in the agenda summary, and the updated schedule as a whole is presented for council's consideration. And then resolution 2021-003 has been prepared to formally approve and adopt the updated traffic control device schedule as presented.
Okay, I think this is a work study where we went through all of this. Does any council member have any questions in regards to any of these things?
You guys do some kind of notification process when you change these, right? Before you start, you don't just go and put signs and start.
I'm not
How
sure
do
what
they
we've
do?
done in the past.
Don't you do some kind of notification process and say, we're doing this, starting this day or something?
Like what do
Like the no parking,
up
for
or something?
example,
Oh, no parking.
changing
Yeah.
something, so people have a little bit of warning.
I don't know what the process is, but I know they did that before they put the no parking signs up on Ottawa Street behind.
That's what I thought.
So I'm not sure.
Notify the residents.
Yeah,
in the
that's what I
neighborhood.
thought.
Before the signs went up, but I'm
I
not sure.
think that was part of actually the traffic study that they did before we decided on that, so we can definitely.
Yes.
Just give them a heads up.
We'll figure something
That's
out
my
as
only-
far as maybe a door hanger or just a posting.
Yeah.
They just come home one day and have a party.
Yeah. Just a little bit of warning when you get.
Okay, if there's no questions, do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve resolution 2021-003, amending the traffic control device schedule and authorize the necessary signatures.
I'll second.
Smell?
Aye.
Upshaw?
Aye.
House?
Aye.
Shield?
Thank you. Water and wastewater master plan consultant selection.
A water and wastewater master plan project project was designated during the 2021 budget development process. This plan will evaluate and assess the current water and wastewater infrastructure and help us plan for future capital projects. The city of Paola, we solicited proposals for this, for the water and wastewater master plan. 2 proposals were received by the submission deadline. And based on the review of the proposals, the interview process, and the feedback from references, the screening and selection committee believes that McClure will best serve the city of Paola's interest for the water and wastewater master plan. McClure has proposed a total price of $118,750. And that's broke down about $38,000 on the water side and $80,750 on the wastewater side. Staff recommends that council authorize McClure to develop the water and wastewater master plan for the amount of $118,750 and authorize the necessary signatures. And we'll be working with them to finalize the scope and the agreement.
Are there any questions in regard to this?
I know we don't have the final scope ready, but what's the estimated completion date of this?
I think they had, at the end of November is what was kind of slated, I think, from the proposal. And that was with a May start time, so. My thought is that maybe January 1 before the time we get it and have drafts back and forth and get to council presentation.
If it starts June. Okay, does anyone have any questions, or do we have a motion to approve this consultant?
I'll make a motion to approve the consultant firm with McClure. By the screening and selection, that was selected by the screening and selection committee, and authorize the necessary signatures.
I'll second.
Snail.
Aye.
Upshaw.
Aye.
House.
Aye.
Shield.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. And the Lake Myola Dam Geotech Study Consultant selection.
Infrastructure at Lake Myola includes a 2,200 foot long dam. In 2019, McAfee Henderson Solutions was engaged to review the dam's original design plans, their historical inspection of, and review the historical inspection reports. And they were also to evaluate dam repairs and modifications that were made in 2014 and 2016. And then they were to develop a scope for geotechnical investigation, which could then be used as to design a future dam stabilization project. And the city of Paola recently utilized the scope of the work developed by McAfee Henderson Solutions and solicited proposals for this geotechnical investigation at Lake Myola Dam. One proposal was received by the submission deadline. Based on the review of the proposal, conversations with that consultant, and feedback from a reference who was another dam project here in Kansas, staff believes the Von Intertech proposal best serves the city of Paola's interest and recommends them to perform the Lake Myola Dam and geotechnical investigation.
Doesn't that one in the two that we did in 14 and 16, they're holding up okay, aren't they? That work that we've done there?
I think so. The idea of this study will go in, and my understanding will evaluate what was done and then also plan for the next stabilization project. It could be that if it comes back that geotechnical in those areas is a little bit iffy, then we might have recommendations of stabilization that we have to do in those areas because the fill material isn't quite right or something like that. So.
I hope it's okay. This is what we did without the state of Kansas.
Yeah, and as to follow up on that, part of that with McAfee Henderson Solutions, they've worked with the state knows where we're at, they know that we're kind of in progress of this, and once we get to the larger stabilization project, then that will go to the state, we'll get permitted to that, and that will kind of take care of those previous projects that we did in 14 and 16, and we'll be squared away on that.
Okay.
And do we have estimated start and stop times on that? Start and end times?
On the geotechnical, I think my understanding that they could mobilize before the end of the month is my understanding. I'm not sure how fast they get that done. We needed some survey work, which we have through McAfee, Henderson Solutions. So I think we're good to go on that. So we gotta kind of get coordinated on a timeline, but I know, my understanding with my conversation with that, I think it was Jeff Hoffman, he said they can mobilize by the end of the month. They actually come out and start the sampling.
And what's a normal time frame for it to be completed?
I would say 2 months at the most. Because they'll have to, time they come out, take the samples, those samples get analyzed at the lab, and they have about a month to prepare the report.
Okay, so we'll find out. Do we have a motion for this?
I move to approve Ron Intertech to perform the geotechnical investigation at Lake Milo Dam for the amount of $66,909.50 and authorize the necessary signatures.
I'll second. Smale?
Aye.
Upshaw?
Aye.
House? Aye. Shield?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. This is set a condemnation public hearing at 401 East Kaskaskia. I think we've been here before we did this.
A little bit of deja vu, I believe.
I was reading Bill's report and I don't know that anything's improved much.
And that is why we have proposed to move forward with this.
Moving forward again.
Yes, so as you said, it's kind of deja vu. In 2016, 401 East Kaskaskia was actually deemed a dangerous structure, but the council decided to give some extensions because it was sold and they said they were going to improve the property. A building permit and architecture plans have actually been submitted and approved on March 11th for the property. But due to no significant improvement since 2016, we gave them a deadline of June 15th of 2021 to have a final inspection scheduled. And if they weren't going to meet that deadline, we requested they give us notification and a written plan of action by June 1st. But since no inspections have been scheduled since this time, Bill did a site check on May 6th, and those findings are attached for you to review if you have not yet already. And his recommendation is that to pass a resolution to set the public hearing due to the property being unsafe. With, if the resolution of 2021-007 is passed, it would set the public hearing for July 13th. And it would also allow the property to continue to move forward if they would like to work towards finishing the permit while the notification process is going through.
Well, they have to make significant improvements on that before
They would.
they'll have things they have to meet, guidelines, steps. Okay.
And at the hearing date, Bill will provide another report for everyone to review as well. So the resolution and the report is attached for your review.
Is there any questions in regard to this? I think you all know where the property is. We're okay, if there's not, do we have a motion to approve this resolution?
I'll make a motion to approve resolution 2021-007, setting the condemnation hearing at 401 East Kaskaskia and authorize the necessary signatures.
I'll second.
Smale?
Aye.
Upshaw?
Aye.
House? Aye. Shield?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. You know this works. Okay, move on to committee reports, which do you anyone have any? Not, staff reports,
First off, Councilman Snell, I want to apologize, that was out of line on my part. My response to you, so that wasn't as professional as it probably should have been, so.
That's probably as professional as mine.
I just want to get that.
We'll all agree with that.
So So like I say, quid pro quo.
Okay.
There's nothing else.
Okay. Well, I just want to be honest, because I'm sitting over here feeling like it should have been that way, so I just. Comprehensive plan, as already mentioned, the survey is scheduled to be out until May 17th. That gives us one more weekend coming up here. As of this morning, we had 448 responses.
Did they think that was a good response number? Were they pleased?
Well, I know when I talked to them on Friday, we had about 350, and they seemed pleased by that response amount. So I know we had the school district put it out on their mass email on Friday. So I think we've got some more Facebook posts yet this week to try to push that out there and get as much out there as possible. So
I will like to add just, and I've reinforced this over and over, that I know that some of the supporters feel the survey may be confusing, but it's so important for them to go through and fill it out. And if I said on number 26, it gives the additional comments box. But if you feel something's unclear, that's where you type it in. So I know that survey is going to be important information. So I know that they're going to share this video. So make sure people are filling out the survey, because we're doing it for a reason.
And I will say that, the thing I think it was, I don't know who it was, Justin, the fact that they didn't have to sign their name, so it can be coming from anywhere. Those surveys, we don't know where they're coming from.
Would you fill out a survey if it didn't pertain to you? I'd throw them
Oh,
away.
a lot of people, under pressure from other people, yeah, they will.
Really?
Yeah, oh, sure.
well, and I think.
And it didn't address a couple of issues that I felt like it should have addressed. And, I just thought some of the questions were not worth putting on paper.
Well, I thought it was pretty just all general, right?
Well, it's general for a reason.
Yeah.
To try to gather, I mean, that's why we have
Gather information.
a company do it, because this is what they do. So hopefully these people will fill it out.
I hope so too.
The pool is scheduled to open Monday, the 31st of May.
How much are the season passes?
They will be, I think, $45 for the first, well, is it 50 for a single? And then 45, if you're doing a group, it's 45 for the first one and 35 for the next 5. And basically the same pricing we've had before. We did modify the senior from $150 to $2 just so that they didn't have to worry about change. That won't prevent somebody from coming in there with 100 pennies.
The problem for old people.
I don't admit to that. I pay the full price.
The hours will be 1 to 6, partly just because we don't have a lot of guards and we've got young guards, and so we're just trying to keep it kind of.
I was going to ask you, did you have very many applicants for the lifeguard positions, or were they hard to fill again this year?
I think Sherry would say we have enough right now, but we would take more if we got them. We have enough to do what we're trying to do. It was hard, and we've actually talked about, we may need to think about, do we adjust that pay level for those guards? Because I think other places are paying a little bit more now for lifeguards than just minimum wage. And so that's something as we move forward that we kind of need to think about. And just trying to figure out if there's a different way that we can try to attract young kids that like to be in the water and want to some of the jobs. So and I've seen articles, I think McPherson and I think Hutchison, several places that they're talking about their struggles to fill that.
There's a lot of,
for lifeguard.
I mean, there's just hiring issues.
Yeah.
A lot of places for those kind of entry level things, so.
Is there a chance during the swimming season of us having what enhancements we're going to try to do to the pool so that we could advertise them down there and actually have them where people can see, okay, we're open this year, these are the additions we're gonna be putting on it next year?
Yes, that's my intention, that it may not be, it'll probably be around the June timeframe, but at least the last month or so that the pool's open, being able to kind of have some diagrams or concept to show what we're looking at doing and what we think we'll be able to do. 'Cause I know that we've got some of that from, Splashtacular, but it's kind of then having that conversation like, okay, we're gonna do these things. If so, then Splashtacular can have that kind of information to us pretty quick.
Because the two biggest questions I'm getting is, is the pool gonna be open this year? And I tell them, yes, it's gonna be open. And then, what are they doing for it? So like I say, that would really help it. We got
The
something
sign that
out
says,
there.
look forward to next year
Yeah.
will be, coming next year. Okay.
And then just, the right turn lane project at Baptiste is moving along, and so is the Baptiste extension. I know Kirk, he's told me today, they're hoping to do a lift of asphalt next week on the extension project, but with the forecast of rain, that may not happen, so.
Yeah.
But that's the hope, that they'll start laying asphalt maybe next week, so.
This may be a dumb question, because I'm not an engineer or anything, but why did we tear the curbs out? 'Cause
Oh,
they're-
out there, at the
Yeah.
right time, they tore out all the curbing and things.
and then they're putting them back in the same spot.
Well, I think they had to make some adjustments for ADA. Is what I understand of that. Usually, if you do any improvements to a road, then you have to bring that up to an ADA standard, especially if it's a KDOT type of a KDOT project. And so I think that's what,
So it'll have some handicap ramps and
Yeah.
stuff in.
yeah, that intersection should be, at least as of when it gets done, it'll be ADA compliant. Those regulations may change at some point, but
It would just seem to me like if they made the cutouts for the ADA in the existing curbs, we would have saved a bunch of money there.
yeah, well, they have part of that is the cutout, and then also you have to have a certain a space for landing, and it has to be a certain grade and all that, so. But yeah, I think that's all tied to bringing that up to ADA compliant.
Yeah, I was just curious, because it looked like they were going exactly the way.
I didn't know why either, I thought, no, I don't know.
Well, and like I said, a lot of that is driven by, it's a KDOT project.
Well, where they're paying most of the money.
Yeah.
Trying to give you permission.
That's all I have.
Okay. All right. Stephanie,
I'm happy. No, ma'am.
Lee?
Me?
Yeah.
I don't have anything, but I think everybody at City Hall ought to appreciate taking honor away from me and PD.
Yes, I can hear, I missed a little bit of a
You asleep?
speech or something last time. Yeah. Thank you.
I think he's gonna make you come back and work.
All right, I'm sure he's thinking of ideas. I'm
Yeah, I
so close
bet.
now,
Yeah.
He's probably just thinking, just come on over.
Yeah, that's right, this is the hour.
You can run, but you can't hide.
She'll be a tough act to follow.
Yeah,
So I appreciate
that's
that.
what I hear. Gary?
I don't have anything.
Right.
Sure, give me your notebook.
Here's your chance, Brian.
Notebook, what you say.
I always try to give you an opportunity here. Okay. Go on to miscellaneous matters from the council, Dave.
No, I've said plenty tonight.
Oh, okay. And not even politically correct. Okay.
Just in honor of National Police Week, I want to thank the Paola Police Department and all the admin staff and all the officers. You guys do a fantastic job, and want to let you know you're very much appreciated. So that's all I have.
Lee?
Just want to reinforce how important it is that we continue to work together. I think that, like they were saying, we all have the same goal. So I think that it's just important to do our best to work together, because otherwise we're kind of fighting the same battles. So just I'm trying to,
Once we get to the end.
we are all pretty much on the same page. There's just a couple of details that people are getting frustrated about, but I really think that we're gonna get where they want us to be. They're just,
Maybe not quite as quick, and it's what I always say, the wheels of government always turn, just not quick.
yeah, so it's
It's
a
a little
process.
bit different when it's government versus.
It's a process, but we're gonna get there.
Yes, we will. Leanne? Okay, thank you. And I don't either. So do we have a motion for adjournment?
Make a motion, we adjourn.
I'll second that.
Snail,
Aye.
Westrum,
Aye.
House, Shields.
Aye.